Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're in Masechta Sotah daf Chaf. We are going to begin on Chaf Amud, third line from the top. Yiboilhu. So the Gemara asks the following question: Amra, if she says Eni Shaisa, Machmas Beriusa, she says I'm not going to drink, and she is very confident. The Chazvi Amr Shaisani. Then after she says I'm going to drink, Mahu Kivandimar Eni Shaisa. Since originally she said I'm not going to drink, Timea Nika Amrit, she's basically admitting to her guilt and she's Tame. Kivan di Achsik Navshi Batoma, once she's already basically established herself like that, Lumatza Hadrabe, she can't retract. The Dilma Kivan di Amr Shaisani, once she says now I'm going to drink, Al Yadaita the Machmas Biasusahu de Amra. Maybe now it's just because she is just a little bit worried, but the truth is she may really be innocent. Teku. Amra Abu Dishmot, Sarach Shiitin Marla Taichamayim. You have to put something bitter into the water. My Tamadi Amr Kram, Mehamorim, Shemarim Kvar. Says the next Mishnah. Masnisan. Ad Shalo Nimcha HaMegillah. Before the actual Megillah and Hashem's name was erased, Amr Eini Shaisa, she says, I don't wish to drink Megillasa Nignezes. So the Megillah literally gets like Geniza put away. It says Rashi, Besidi HaHechel, Batsira HaHechel, the whole Kisya Kaidish Enun Royin Likrois Behen Nignazim Shlo Yisbazu. So there's an obligation of putting things in Shemus or Geniza so that it doesn't get disgraced. And that's what we do with this Megillah because it has Hashem's name on it. Umin Chasa, when it came to the Karban Mincha, Mispazeres al Hadeshen. So that gets scattered on the base of Dashin, says Rashi Shehiba Azara, Shisarfin Sham Psuli Kodesh Kedoshim. Well, the Psuli Kodesh Kedoshim, that's where it goes. The Psuli Emurim as well as the Psuli Emurim of the sacrificial parts. The Ein Megillasa Kshera Lahashkus Plus Sait Acher. So you can say, well, wait 1 second. Maybe it makes sense that we should actually allow this to be used for another woman. So no, you can't do so. Why not? Says Rashi, to be in Ksiva Lashma. It has to be that the actual writing the Megillah of this Megillah Sotah, it has to be done specifically for that particular woman. And therefore, since it was written for her, it can't be used for someone else. The Chsivi Asalah HaKoin La Lashma, which is, we've had this before as well. Now, on the other hand, let's say already Nimcha Megillah. Let's say the Megillah is already put into the Kli and the name of Hashem is already erased. Yamar Tamani. And now she admits to her guilt. She says, I'm Tameh. I, in fact, was with this man. So Hamayim Nishpochen. So what we do is we pour out this water. Says Rashi, Kivan de Amar Tamani. Once she's already said, I'm Tameh, but Duke of Omedesi. We already know the reality. The whole purpose of the water was to test to see if she's guilty or innocent. She's admitting to her guilt, so now there's no need for her to drink it. It just comes to explain the doubt. However, once the doubt has been clarified by her directly, so therefore there's no need for her to drink it. And what do we do with the mincha? Minchasa mispa zeres al beis hadeshen. Again, same thing. It gets brought to the base of Deshin like all Psuli Kodesh Kedoshim and Psuli Amorim. Nimcha HaMegillah. So let's say instead the Megillah again was erased. V'amra Eini Shaisa. She doesn't say Tameani, but she says I refuse to drink. So in that situation, we're not going to tell her, oh, that's okay. Rather, we're going to force her to drink it. Now, why? Maybe, in fact, she's admitting to her guilt. So Rashi says, no. The Dilma Taharahi. This doesn't clarify anything by her saying, I don't wish to drink. Maybe she really is innocent. Umachmas Resisusa Ka'amra. She's just afraid of this whole procedure. It's very overwhelming to her. And that's the reason why she doesn't want to drink. However, the truth is, if she would drink, nothing would happen to her because maybe she's innocent. So therefore, because of that, we do force her to drink. Enu maspekes lishtais ad shipaneha marikois. So we say that once she drinks and she's guilty, we will see that quite fast her face will change color, greenish tint. The eineha boltois, and her eyes will start bulging. V'hi mis malis gidim, and also her sinews will get all clogged up. They're going to start getting larger. V'heim oimrim hoitzihu shlo tatami hazara. They're going to say, get her out of here, because we don't want her to be Matam the Azara, because she's about to die. Says Rashi, Shari Nikner o Ezras Nashim Shetetzi Derech Sham Kama Parach Baham Rinan Ba'alma the Shari Nikner lo Niskachu. The Shar Niknar, that's a very special place because that's where the Metzara puts in his thumbs, because he's allowed to do that because it doesn't have the same level of Kedusha as the rest of the Azara. So therefore the Kasha is, so then what's the whole problem if she dies there? And apparently, says Rashi, we know this even as we were talking about with Moshe Rabbeinu, that he had the Atzmas Yosef there. Now, so we'll have to get to that in the Gemara. However, if this woman has some schus, some merit, so it's going to be tayla. Doesn't mean that she's going to die right away, even if she was guilty. But maybe if she has some type of a merit, that will hold her for a bit. Yesh schus, tayla shana achas, yesh schus, tayla beis shanim, yesh schus, tayla gimel shanim. So there's some that actually go for a year. Sometimes she can live for 2, sometimes even 3. Mikan oimer ben azai, chayv adam lamadas bitay tayra. This is the reason why you have to teach your daughter Torah. Shim tishte, since if she drinks, teida shehaschus tayla. We see that there's a schus attached to her. Since she's knowledgeable, she'll understand why she didn't die right away. It's because of a schus. So by her knowing this information, it's not going to be to think that, oh, this whole, I tricked them, but rather it's in order for her that she should know this. So, interestingly enough, he says, according to Ben Azai, he says that you should make sure you teach your daughter Torah as much as you teach your son's Torah. There's a lot of important, valuable information that they need to know as well. And the Gemara is going to explain why it's so bad to teach your daughter Torah. You would think that's important. Rabbi Yeshua Omer writes Isha B'kav V'tiflus Mates Kabin Uprecious. This we've had before, that if she can choose between wealth and a husband who's never around, or a guy who's not able to provide too much, but enough to survive, but at least is around, she'd prefer that. Right to Isha B'kav V'tiflus, she'd prefer a small amount, but at least an element of foolishness. Doesn't mean tiflus, but it means a relationship. Mit tes kabin uprecious, than having a lot of money and always being alone. So that's an important concept, because the word tiflus over here may tell us something like that. Kol ha'melamed bita Torah. So when it says if you teach your daughter Torah, lom de tiflus. Tiflus in this context could have something to do with a connection, a relationship. So it's something to certainly think about, whether or not that's necessarily a derogatory term, which is seemingly poshut pshat. Who aimer chassid shaita, a person who's a chassid shaita, we'll discuss what that is. Rasha aram, a wicked person who is naked. The isha perusha, or a woman who's a perusha, makais perushin hari elu mibali oilam. So these are people are the Mabali Oilam, which is, again, this is not complimentary, and we're going to understand this latter part of the Mishnah on another daf. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, said Misham Rameir, he said the name of Rameir the following, Kishayisi lo mitarei to Rabbi Kiva, that when I was learning to next to Rabbi Kiva, Hayisa metel kankantum b'tay chadiyoi. This is word in Arabic. So he used to put kankantum, this liquid, inside the dio, which was used for a scribe to write. V'lo omerli davar. He didn't say a word. Apparently, kankantum is acceptable. Kishabasi etzel Rabbi Shmuel. But then when I went to Rabbi Shmuel, Armalei b'ni, ma malachtacha, what's your job? Amarti lo lav lorani. What's that? Lav lorash is a cipher. I'm a scribe. Armalei b'ni, havi zahir shemalachtacha malacha shemayim hi. Make sure to be very careful, because your job is connected directly to malacha shemayim. Shema taksir ois achas o tatir os achas. You may add an extra letter. You may miss out an extra letter, even an aleph, something very small, or an extra vav. Nimsa ata machavis kolam kulai. It's like you're going to destroy the whole world, because you're going to end up causing problems, because the Torah is not going to be authentic. It'll be puzzle. Amarti lo davar echad yeshli shani matal techad. There's something I put into my ink. Is that true? That it's supposed to have the potential to be erased. Ksav sheyuchal limchos. So, which implies that kankantum, even if it gets erased, Rishumo Nicker, you'll still be able to see its writings, which L'chara is telling you the kankantum is not acceptable. So, my kamalei umay kamahadile. What was this whole conversation? Haka kamalei. Lo miboy b'chaseres v'yaseres debaki ana. Don't worry, I'm an expert. I'm certainly not going to make mistakes adding words or letters that are extra or missing anything, and the ones that are supposed to be there should be there. Ilafilu l'meichesh l'zvuv. Even to be concerned of some fly, the dilma asi, it's going to come v'yosef atagi, the dal is going to sit on the crown of the dal, umachakle, erase it, umishavle reish, and it'll change the letter. Davar echad yeshli shani matala techadiyai. To avoid this problem, I have special ink, because I have a kankantum shema, I put it into it, and therefore kankantum is going to alleviate that potential issue. Eini v'hatanya Rabbi Meir kashi silam tar etzel Rabbi Shmuel, when he was by Rabbi Shmuel, hayisim mato kankantum b'techadiyai. Well, Amruli Davar said nothing. Shavasi etzel Rabbi Kiva, and went to Rabbi Kiva. Amrulai kasha etzel Rabbi Kiva, asra alai. He answered it. So kasha shimush ashimush, kasha asra asra. So the question about the shimush, says Rashi, the Karmel El shimush to Rabbi Kiva kaidim. That first he went to Rabbi Kiva, and over here it says he went to Rabbi Shmuel first. So which one was it? And also, who's the one who answered? So Gemara says like this. Kasha asra asra. So bishul mishimush ashimush kasha mikara asra kamei Rabbi Kiva. Originally he did go in front of Rabbi Kiva. Kivan delo mati come alibe asra kamei Rabbi Shmuel. So eventually, because it was difficult, says Rashi, to understand everything, says Rashi, al ikri tami shahaya omer al tami tahar. Rabbi Kiva used to even say things which were the opposite of the truth. He was able to show through kal v'chomer how something tami could really be tahar, which of course is not what he was trying to accomplish, but it showed the depth of his learning. Umar panim, he proved it. Val tar tami umar panim. So it was difficult for me to understand exactly what was examples or what was the absolute reality. So Kivando Matzi Kama Libe also came to Rabbi Shmuel. Gamra, so he actually taught me all the Mishnayos, and then Hado also came to Rabbi Kiva. And Savar Svara, so once I was able to have a little bit of better understanding, I was then able to now go back to Rabbi Kiva and understand him better. So I went to Rabbi Kiva. It was too difficult. I went to Rabbi Shmuel. He explained to me a lot, and then Rabbi Kiva. El asr kasha. Tanya Yehuda Omer Hay Rameir Lachol Matil Kankantum Chadiyai. The truth is, as we continue the Chafam Bebeis, you could put kankantum into any ink for any purposes. Chutz Miparsha Sotah Bilvad. That is something which is not allowed. And Rashi over here says, not just for the Sotah, but feel b'Sefer Torah. Even when you're writing a Sefer Torah, that one section, you have to be careful you do not put kankantum. Rabbi Yaakov Omer Mishmo Chutz Miparsha Sotah Shel Mikdash. No. You could write the Sefer Torah that way, but the actual, even if it's the Parsha and Parshas Naso, but when it comes to the actual Sotah in the base of Mikdash, that scroll cannot be kankantum. So my benayu, so Rabbi Yirmiyah, limcha klomen atayrik benayu. Says Rashi, Parsha Sotah b'Sefer Torah. Whether or not, again, in the Sefer Torah itself, it has to be something in which could be completely erased, potentially. Bahani tanai ki hani tanai, desanya. En Megillah sah shera lahashkas b'Sotah cheres. As we said, you cannot use this Megillah for another woman. It has to be that when it was provided and written, it was for this one woman. He's chaylik. He says, not true. You could actually use a Megillah that's written for another woman. So Omer Rav Papa Dilma, well, he maybe it's not true. Ad kan lo kamer tanakam hasam el kivan to intik l'shum Rachel lo hadra minat l'shum Leah. Maybe the whole din is that once it's written for Rachel, you can't write it cannot be given over for Leah. Abul Torah, when it comes to the Torah itself, the stomach siva, that it's just written plainly. So hachinami demachkinon. So maybe in that situation, it could be erased. In other words, it's not written specifically for a particular woman, the Sefer Torah. So maybe when it comes to the Megillah, Sotah, Okay, because it was done specifically for a procedure for a woman, this woman, so you can't use it for someone else. However, to use the words from the Sefer Torah itself, so that was just written stam, so maybe that's allowed. So Amar Abdachman Rabbi Yitzchak Dilma Yad Kan Lo Kamer Rabbi Chabei Yeshai Hasam Elba Megillah Deichtav L'Shum Alos Ba'olim. When it comes to the Megillah, it was written for those particular stam curses. Of Torah, the Islamic Siva, when it comes to the Torah, the whole purpose was just to learn. It was Hachinami Delay Machkinan. Maybe in that situation you don't erase. Rav Achabar Yeshai Leisla, and Rav Achabar Yeshai Leisla doesn't hold of it. Kosovly Garshis Ishto. Let's say now instead you have a situation not as we've been talking about the Sotah, but a get. So when it comes to a get, which we're going to be getting to pretty soon, you write a get for your wife, and Nimlach, you change your mind, ben Iroi, and then all of a sudden, you throw it into a garbage heap. Someone finds it and says ben Iroi, the Amalo Shmi Kashimcha B'Shem Ishti Kashem Ishtacha Pasal Garish Boy. So if you find the exact get, which has the same people's names, same city and everything, which is almost an impossibility, but imagine this would be the case, academically speaking, it still would not work, because when it comes to this, it has to be written Lishma. So why do we make a distinction? When it comes to a get that it has to be written Lishma, we should say the same thing when it comes to the Sotah. Because when it says V'kasav law, so the drush is that it has to be written Lishma. Get which is not written Lishma doesn't work. We should say the same thing when it comes to a woman for the Sotah. So Mayasiya Machika. It doesn't mean writing Lishma, but the Machika. The Machika has to be Lishma. It says Rashi, Lim Chayk Parsha Sotah B'Sefer. Okay, fine. Let's look at question 1. Well, Man V'Yomer, the Megillah Kshera, L'Hashkes Pas Sotah Cher, so you can use it for another woman. So Mas Svar D'Yesh Omer D'Mikol Macham Poisa Machika B'Sefer Torah. So then why is it possible this Machika from a Sefer Torah? Because a Megillah Nichtav L'Shem Allah. However, Sefer Torah Islamic Siva. It was written just to learn. It wasn't meant for this procedure. And then the second question, Kasha the Ksiva, also law the Hainu Lishma. Lishma means Mayasiya Machika, the racing. However, the Ksiva does not have to be Lishma. Okay. Alright. Weiter. Einu maspekes lishtosad shiponev chulus. This changes her body. So mani, who is this like that it works right away? Rav Shimon Hidiyomer makriv es minchasa, that you're makriv the carbon mincha v'yachach mashka. Then after she drinks it, but now let the Tanakam, the kama doloi karba minchasa. According to him, as long as you are not makriv the carbon, lo bad kilomai. It doesn't examine her, doesn't do anything. So Ema say, if there's a schus, the Mishnah says, Haisa Toyla, Latonu Rabbanan, the Rav Shimon, Ha'omer ein schus toyl b'mayim hamarim. So Rav Chisda, Hamani Rabbi Kiva, the Omer Makriv es minchasa, first she bring the mincha v'yachach mashka, then she drinks, it was schus savar l'karabanan. When it comes to the schus, he holds like the shita of the Rabbanan. So my time the Dilma Mesa, maybe she'll die. So remember the Mace Osir b'machna aviyah. What are you talking about? What's the problem with even if she dies over there by the Shar Nikner? Basanya Tami Mace motul chanas machna aviyah. V'lo Tami Mace bilvad amru. Not just a person who came in contact with the mace is not to be machna aviyah. It'll feel mace atzmai. Shneimar v'yikach Moshe atzmai zosei v'imo mechitzasai. As we said previously, that Moshe had the Atzmos Yosef with him. So it means with him in the Machna Aviyah. So what's the whole problem if she dies? So Rabbi, Shema Tifreis Nida. The interesting point is we're not as concerned about that. We're more concerned of Nida. Says Rashi, Agav Biasusa, the Mayim Hamarim, because she's afraid that Nida Hazav Balkari Asur b'Machna Aviyah. So interesting enough, a dead person is allowed to be closer in the Machna Aviyah than even a Nida. But again, also a Zav and a Zava, Balkari, fine. So Memra, you're trying to tell me to be a Susa Marpa? Are you telling me that when a woman is afraid, that causes her to potentially become a Nida? And yes, T'chsiv, as the Pasuk says in Megillah Esther, V'tischalchal hamalka ma'oid. that Esther was like loosened up. Yomarav she Pirsanida. Why was she Pirsanida? Because she was petrified. She was scared about this, everything that was going on. Arvan and Tanan. But didn't we learn the opposite? That charada, fear, masalekas damim, it removes blood, it contracts. So which one does it? So my answer is pachda tsamis. When it comes to being pachad, that holds back because of the constant anxiety and worry. Biasusa marafia. Says Rashi, biasusa haba pitoim, something which comes very quickly, that is something which could cause her kigonzu shlo haisa charada ad achshav. She wasn't afraid now. Upitom he margeshes batzar, she feels pain immediately. V'chein be'Esther habasla shemois Mordechai pitoim, that Mordechai told her about this quickly, so she was pirsanida. So if something happens quickly, that jolt is what causes you to become a nida. However, in this situation, if let's say it's just a stretched out long anxiety of thoughts, so that actually could affect the menstrual cycle the opposite way. So money must be that you have 3 years. Lo Abba Yosi ben Chanan, V'lo Rabbi Elazar ben Yitzchak, Ish Kvar Daroim, V'lo Rabbi Shmuel. It's not like any of the 3 sheets is going to say the Sanya. If she has a schus, so Toyla Shloisha Chadashim, 3 months. Kedei Hakaras Ha'uber, Divri Abba Yosi ben Chanan, because during that time, that's when the child will be recognized. And this is, as the pasuk it says, V'nizra Zera. So it's the measurement of the time in which a person would be able to recognize that she's pregnant. Rabbi Elazar ben Yitzchak ish kvar darim oimer tes chadashim shenem b'niksav v'nizra zara, that a woman gives birth in 9 months, so it makes sense she has 9 months. L'hon oimer zera ya'abdu yisuber zera haroy l'saper, that which is fit to say and praise Hashem. Rabbi Shmuel oimer shnei masar chodesh, 12 months. Yabish nirayel davar zecha davar. There's no absolute proof, but a little bit of hint to it. T'chsiv, as it says in Sefer Daniel, Lahain malka malka yishbar alayich v'chatoyich b'sadka parik, and the righteous sin was redeemed. V'amosayich b'michan enoyin, and due to the iniquities there was mercy. Says Rashi, Daniel omer l'Nebuchadnezzar. So Daniel said to the king of Bavel, Kish Patsar lo hachaloim, when he had this dream, Shin nitrad min hanashim liyois im behema v'chaya l'hin malcha amnon hamelch malcha yishmer l'ayach atzei tita v'nayach. So he was afraid that he was going to be punished. So on him he said that because you engaged in acts of righteousness, so therefore because of that you are going to be spared. As we continue to Chav Aleph, at least for 12 months. Hein tahavi arka l'shilosayich, says Rashi. V'yazehi arech zman l'shalomcha. You're going to have a little bit extra time. Shlo yabo lecha hapranyos. The punishment's not going to come to you, Nebuchadnezzar, so fast. V'chein asa Nebuchadnezzar hayim mekabitz b'chol yom inui Yisrael. He used to gather up all the poor people of Israel. Shahavi begoylo v'hayusrichim zaynis mefarnasim. He actually sustained them. V'afdanil kishe niso eitzazu, when he gave them this advice, l'chach nischaven sharaz Yisrael begoyim achzion al psachim. So he used to go to people's homes and he used to help them out. So Nebuchadnezzar, recognizing that he was going to be punished, it was prolonged by 12 months. So ksiv koyla mata al Nebuchadnezzar malka ksiv lixas yarchin train Aser. It says Beferish was 12 months. So that's the question. So we see it's 3 months, 9 months, 1 year, but not 3 years. So how does our Mishnah say 3 years? Oh, Rabbi Shmuel. What do you mean? But he says it's a year. Yashkach kra di armor batani. The pasuk actually repeats itself. The chsiv, it says in Amos Korma Hashem al shloisha pishe edoim, regarding Hashem will delay 3 times those who are poisheya. My alpha pishe in rayo davar zecho davar dilma shani av kachavim doy mifkedina olayhu. So this is referring to av kachavim, and therefore not necessarily this is a raya that this would also apply to a yid, that the delay is much longer. But nonetheless, the point is that it says it was repeated, so therefore it was really supposed to be a year, but therefore it was 3 times, so Hashem allowed it to occur for 3 years. Kamazman l'chol hayoser toilus chus b'saita. Question 2. Some say 3 months, some say 9 months, some say a year, and some say 3 years. Okay, before we stop, let's see if there's another question. Hadraba v'omer eini shaisa. This is what we started off with. She says, I'm not going to drink. So she changed her mind. He'im mashkinaisa bal karcha. So we end up saying it was really in a boya. However, so hadra machmas b'riusa, if the reason why TA 30 that she's saying this. Right, this is because of Omer Shaisani. So not that she said Shaisani, but rather she said Mao Kivande Omer Shaisani Tamani Ka Omer Bekim the Aksach Nafshakom. Okay. Kivandi Omer Shaisani. This is the case where she says Eini Shaisa. Okay. This is not really the Gemara, but this is, as we saw elsewhere, that if it's machmas b'yusa, that she's really healthy, so she doesn't show any fear, so then lo shasa, she doesn't drink. Machmas v'sisa, if she's afraid, so anshul nimcha Megillah, before the Megillah was written, then ein mashkin, we're not going to force her. However, namcha mashkin bal karcha, once she's actually, once it's taken place already, that we already erased the name, then we are going to force. Because maybe the fear is not because of guilt, but she's just afraid of the entire process. Let's see. Question TB1, which is really the Mishnah. Is there kedusha in this water that was erased? And the answer is that ein behen kedusha, and therefore nishbachim, it's poured out. Ad kan.